Good morning. Let's continue from leftover yesterday, but actually, it's not my intention to leave it that way. It's because of the device problem. Technology always has some mishaps if you don't know quite know what it is or somebody did it. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's continue with the summary. Let's just backtrack a little. We start with why. Let me just repeat some part of it, maybe. Uh, okay. I stressed yesterday, I mentioned when we say why, we mean causal relationship. And we read this question facing the world, all the elements, identifiable things in front of our eyes in our daily lives, right? Okay, but when we ask this fundamental or the most basic, the number one question, we cannot, we should not ask or use the word why. Do you know why? Because the word why implies there's another thing behind it. It's a causal relationship, right? What caused this object you are inquisiting? What caused this object? What is the background? What is the foundation of this object you're questioning? So that's a basic, that's the most likely situation. So we can ask why this tree is here, why the sky is so blue, but we cannot ask why there's something rather than nothing, because this something or nothing we are questioning is the most fundamental, the most basic entity or ontologically in philosophy, you may say it this way. So this is not ordinary or common question you can ask. That is the reason. No, nothing you can assume still behind the questioning object. That's the reason. So you don't want to be have a circle of reasoning because that's wrong, right? And you, by that principle, you cannot simply ask why. You cannot say what's the reason, what's behind something and nothing. You cannot say that. So this is a sign that the questioner does not quite identify things and use a common daily mundane question to inquire about the most fundamental, the number one question human beings face. Okay? Okay. Let's come to the second word that we call it something. All right. What is something? I would say the definition is if it's identifiable, it is something. Beware of the wording here. Whatever is identifiable, it's something. In other words, if it's a quality, it can be identified, of course, and it is something. Here's a very subtle part. By something, I don't only mean in the epistemological sense in philosophy, meaning it doesn't mean that I know it or I don't know it. What I meant is ontologically. It's true, it's there, it's real or not. Logically. You as a human being, knowing it or not, it doesn't matter, right? It's like the world exists. What's the history of the Big Bang? 101.3 billion years. I think I got it wrong. 13 billion years. 30.7. 13.7 billion years ago. All right, but humans existed on Earth or our solar system only exists for I believe it's 6 billion years. Before that time, there is no truth. Of course there is, but you don't know it, right? There's a law of physics. There's a truth there. There's a mathematics there. You, as a human being, not knowing it, doesn't mean the truth is not exist. Doesn't mean that the truth is not there, right? So that's the meaning of ontology. Okay, so I mean, when we say something, it's not only meaning in the spatial temporal world. We can identify this tree from that tree. There is space in it, so you can identify. I mean, even under the situation, there is no space, no time, because according to the ontology, in the space-time world, it's something which is moving. But in the micro world, MICRO world, not macro, MACRI world, this is a totally different thing. There's no space in the time. There, movement caused the formation of matter. So, movement caused something to happen, which got dropped to the micro world. That is the concept. All right, today I'm not talking about ontology, not about talking about instancology. So I won't say too much about that one, but that's the basic concept that when we say something, we don't only mean under the circumstance of space and time. Like this tree identifiable from the other tree, right? I mean something that you even don't have the spatial temporal existence or dimensions, if you like. I give you example. In your dream, there is no space, there is no time, you don't know space, you don't know time. When you dream about small object, it's not different from when you dream a larger object. It doesn't cause space in your brain. You don't felt your brain is damaged because the space cannot hold it for the bigger object you're dreaming. When you think about the paradise, the the pyramid. Sorry, as a second language, it always has a problem. The pyramid of Egypt, it's different from you are thinking a pin in front of your eye, right? It's the same thing because it doesn't entail space here. It doesn't have time either by itself. Okay? Internally, there's no time. Okay. So here's the thing. It still applies or can be applied by the principle of identifiable. In your dream, we can identify one thing from another one, right? That's called something is happening. We can identify this something that is not restricted or limited by the time and the space. As when you open your eyes, you come to the real world. When you woke up, you have everything identifiable too, but in the spatial temporal relationship dimensions. Okay, so make sure you got this part. You understand what I'm saying here. Identifiable meaning not only in the spatial temporal dimension, but also above that. As a matter of fact, according to Instancology, space and time is a property of things. Just like your sexual desire, it's a property of the biological being of you as an animal. When you grow up, you started to come to have this pubic time period. You have the desire to generate when you become adult. But when you're just born, like a baby, you don't have this property yet. But that's one of your property. If you grow up normally, you will have this property showing up in your life. That's called sexual desire or gender related. Correct? So it's the same thing here. All right? Same thing for the space and the time. Space and the time only occurred when something in its development, in this process, at a certain period, at a certain stage, it will show up. But it will disappear as you grow older, right? Your sexual desire dwindled down as you grow older, older, and older. Before you die, you don't have that anymore, right? That's normal. It's the same thing for the space temporal thing. Okay? Okay, so I hope you get that. And if you're not clear, and probably you can read my book and or ask me questions. I can explain more about it. All right. So when we say something, the most critical definition is as long as it's identifiable. Okay? Identifiable is called something. Or you may say existence. Existence is another word of something, but it stresses the aspect of one from the other, its individuality. So we call it existence. That is the connotation something does not have. All right? So something equals to the word existence in the meaning of it's there. We can identify it. It's identifiable. It's the same thing. Okay. So, okay, when we say something, we say it's identifiable. We say why there's something rather than nothing. Okay. Why there's something. Here's the thing. Does this word something goes beyond the limit of language? In other words, if we don't have language, does this something still there, existing? You should think, yes, that's true, right? Like we mentioned, that in your dream, there's a lot of somethings there, and they exist there in your brain, in your head, and you know it's there, but they are not in the spatial temporal dimensions. And it doesn't even depend on the on the words, on the language, right? And if you cannot speak, you still know you have a dream, but you just tell other people. But you know it's there because it's a common individual's experience. It's pretty obvious. But the point here is when you go beyond the limit of language, that you cannot say it anymore, or unutterable. It's unutterable, not speakable. It's like Wittgenstein said. If you cannot say it clearly, shut up. Keep your silence. Well, that's just to say this is a warning to philosophers. It's not a way of seeking truth, unless you fear that whatever is said inadequately will affect other people's thoughts. But that's another matter. What matters is you don't speak it, you don't talk about it. It doesn't mean it does not exist. It doesn't mean you don't feel it, right? You have it in you. You speak or not, it doesn't matter. What matters is that it's there. You know it. Telling other people or not actually doesn't matter. So here's the question. When you say why there's something, you're saying you mean something existed under normal situation with a background like something else, like this tree, like this dreamed object. That's what you meant by this. So we still come to the basic question. Does this something exist the way that we can use it to question the number one problem or our inquiries, the most fundamental one? Can we use this word something? By the token of its background, what is implied, its connotation, if you will, in terms of expressing, you know that something should not be used for the philosophical query of the most fundamental thing. Because it implies too much and a lot of other things. This something has the background. It's either identifiable or it's in spatial temporal dimensions, or both, right? So when you say why there's something which is identifiable, you are sort of using the common life, mundane object or pronoun, if you like, a representative, a token to mean the most fundamental, the most basic object there. I cannot even say the word object because when I say the word object, I mean it's identifiable from another object, right? So there's some connotation too. The most fundamental answer or truth cannot have the common meaning of the background information, the setting, if you will, like in the film. You cannot imply that to question the starting point of the logic. Because if the starting point, the initial point, is itself logical or causality based, it's a circle of logical reasoning. So that's against the law of logic already. You can do that ever since the first one, starting from the second one onward. You can question, you can see the reasoning, see the setting each one has, no problem. Okay? But you cannot do this with the first, the initial stage, the starting point. So you cannot use something here for that reason. Okay, let's come to the nothing, the nothingness, if you will. You know, nothing, actually, this word is used quite often because the meaning is noun or negative, negation. You can use many other words to express this idea. Like in the Orient, we have Buddhism, which believes that the world is fundamentally nothing. The life is nothing. And that's the most fundamental. So they are saying that you come to this world, it's a suffering. Eventually, everything's nothing. Don't do anything to fight, to hurt other people, something like that. Well, we don't come to that part. But the thing is, nothing, this word, its connotation or its setting is something ahead of it, or its mother. It has a shadow, which is something. In other words, if there's no something, there's no nothing. The word nothing comes from something. So basically, I'm saying Buddhism is not correct to make it upside down. But Hegel is correct because in Hegel's categories, Hegel says being or existing is the first one. All right? When you turn this around, you see the other side because it's a pure being. It's so pure, it is nothing. So from being, we have nothing or nothingness. But you cannot say nothing is the first thing we have to face. You don't have that. If there's nothing, you won't have something. So nothing is a relative term, related, relative to the word something, as Parmenides pointed out in his Element many, many years ago. All right? That's pretty clear. This is always true. This line is correct. From Parmenides to Hegel, to Heidegger, existing something which is beyond everything else. That is correct. Nothing is just an object or just a mirror of something. And for that matter, Sartre, the French philosopher Sartre, nothingness, saying something about nothingness. He wrote a book about that. And so his understanding, in my opinion, is wrong. It's like Buddhism. They are wrong. But Parmenides, Hegel, and Heidegger are correct. Something is first, the positive first. Then you have negative. Without a positive, you cannot have negative. So negative, why we know negative? Because we have positive first. So negative is the outcome or child of the positive. So this is a nothing of something. You can say that way. Just like somebody has money, you don't. You can say I have nothing. Why? Because I compare to somebody who is rich, who has money. Without somebody having money, you won't think you are poor. You have nothing. You won't have that idea. So your idea comes out of the outcome of other people's being rich. So you should realize what's a logical relationship. You cannot make it upside down. That's the point. And also, you cannot say nothingness of everything. When this question is raised, why there is something rather than nothing, meaning we should say why there's nothingness. Why nothingness is a world, is a fundamental, basic, most basic thing. It's nothingness. You cannot say that because of the relationship of a positive versus negative, something versus nothing. By using nothing this way, you want to say nothing of everything, right? That's impossible. If nothing is everything, how about the language? Without language, can you say it? You cannot. If language is one thing, the other is, can you say nothing of yourself as a speaker? No. If nothing of your speaker, you cannot even raise this question anymore. You cannot think about that anymore, right? So nothing can never, ever be applied to the fundamental question because it's a generation of something. It's an update of something. And I hope this point I have made it clear. Okay, so the conclusion, beginning of the logic cannot be logical. We are questioning the beginning. We are questioning the causality link, the chain of logic. The starting point we are questioning cannot be logical anymore. Otherwise, it's a cycle of reasoning. It's a rotation of reasoning. That's wrong. That's against logic itself already. So this question, why there is something rather than nothing, it's a genius question. At that time, when Leibniz said that, because it's 300 years ago, and now it turns into a falsality, a fake question. You cannot legitimately ask this question anymore. You cannot. For above reasons I said. All right. Uh, One more thing I want to mention is we are questioning the origin of everything. And in my Instancology system, I'm thinking about this. Out of the fact that I didn't start this inquiry to the nature directly, but rather internally from the function of my brain. If you're interested, everything in the world, there's at least a double similarity. At least. Okay. For this questioning from mundane world, from our daily lives, from our identifiable universe, you can question in your thoughts, questioning the function of your brain. Have it ever occurred to you that where does your first thought come from? When did you start to have your first thought? I once talked to a surgeon, brain surgeon. He told me he analyzed or cut more than 1,000 skulls trying to figure out where does the thought exist. Where's the storage area in our brain for thoughts? You know, you have this thought, you have that thought. Each one is identifiable from another one, right? So one, two, three, four. How many thoughts you have? You have millions. You can think a lot of new things. You can recall many past things. That's all called thoughts, and which are identifiable one by one. But where's the location? Where's the storage area? He analyzed, he cut through every single cell or joints or nodes, whatever you call it. He cannot find anything like that. In other words, physically, human brains is no different from animal brain in terms of size, in terms of complexity. There's no difference. You cannot see any difference. But the human brain can think, can have complicated, abstract ideas. Animals, other animals cannot. Okay? In Instancology, my start point is from here. How the brain start to have the first thought. From that, you started to have complex thoughts, thought based on thought. You can build a mountain of thoughts, gazillion thoughts. It's like the Big Bang in our universe. The absolute creates relative in the Big Bang, in your brain as well. I call it small bang. It's explosive too. When your brain started to have a first thought, the universe, just like the universe, well, I cannot say universe, whatever the Big Bang comes from. The Big Bang is the thought. The first bang, that is where thoughts come from. So they are similar. In other words, what happened in your brain is similar to what happened in our universe, in the Big Bang, right? The point of Big Bang, we call it a singularity, and it doesn't have physical laws, as we discovered later for other things. It's the same in your brain. When your brain has started the first thought, there is no logic there. You cannot trace it back to where it is. Because if you can find the logic, then it won't be the starting point. So beyond the Big Bang, there's no logic or no laws in it. You cannot trace it in a logical way as you do other things. It's the same here in your brain. So this is a similarity. How your brain creates thoughts is the same way as how the world, or whatever you call it, has the Big Bang started. They are the same process. That's what Instancology discovered. All right? And I hope I made my ideas clear. So, if you are interested in this topic, and have you ever never thought about the question, how does my first thought started? You should read the book, should think about that. You don't want people say you are mentally deficient, do you? All right. You have a very good rationale and complete and perfect. So you should ask this question. You may not bother yourself so much as not be able to sleep well at night, like what I did, but at least you should have thought about that. Give some thought. If you can solve it, do it. If you cannot, well, you still have other lives, right? It's just like you still can enjoy sex, enjoy other desires of your body, like your food, and when you can still be a philosopher. You have other things to do, all right? It's not your profession or your job to solve the fundamental questions, unless you want to be a philosopher. Okay, thank you for listening.